Dave Birkett here, along with Shawn Windsor. And Shawn, pleasure to be joined by you today. Now the third wheel, Carlos Menara is not here with us. I don't know. I think maybe he's just a little salty over another loss from his buddy Matt Patricia and his favorite team, the Lions. He's probably licking his wounds this morning.
He might be. I know he was awfully upset. Well, maybe that's a little harsh. Well, no, it's not. He was pretty upset yesterday in the press box. Every time the Lions missed a pass or had a mistake or, gave up a big play, he was over there. I don't want to say he was cussing, but he was, you could hear him, you know what I mean? Even with the social distance, we weren't too far away. So yeah, I wasn't sure if he belonged in the press box or, up in the coach's box.
I think I've joked with him about this before, that he gets to go to the Matt Patricia vacation home, Martha's Vineyard or wherever it is. So maybe that's where he's used to, he feels at home around his people, and he's pulling for this regime to pull one out. So
yeah, but it's more about the regime. And it's funny because we were walking out yesterday and I was telling him that and I don't mind saying this to you, I don't know if you feel similarly, but
no one else is listening, just you and me.
Yeah, right. I like it when they win. And I was trying to explain to Carlos, it's not as a fan. It's good for our readers and it's good for the region, for the fan base. You and I live among the people that we write for, and it's you want them to be happy. But not only that, it's just I think when a team wins, there's just a lot more momentum, and you know what I mean. Here we are going into winter, and give them a little something to cheer about. So that's why I like to see it, and I don't know why he likes to see it. I don't know if it's any reason like that, but it was funny. We were kind of talking about that on the way out. He's like, "Oh, dude, you can't you can't be worrying about that." I'm like, "No, come on, man. We're not so high up and sort of above everybody that we write for, right? We're down in the muck."
Yeah, no, we can needle Carlos because he's not here about why he wants to see them win. But no, I think you're right. People generally they have this misconception, I think, about us and our business, that we always want to see negative, and really the best thing for business is for teams to win, right?
Absolutely.
Special sections when the Tigers go to the World Series, and Michigan State, you write books when they're playing in the Rose Bowl. So I think there's so many other avenues, opportunities out there. The fans come out of the woodwork, even sort of the part-time fans that just pay attention a little bit because they're too busy with their families. Now they get fully invested in what their teams are doing. So certainly it's better for business when teams win than when they lose.
Yeah. And it's just better for the region and the psyche of the sports fans, the sports lovers in our region. Absolutely. Negative only sells for so long, right? I mean, in the long run, it's the winning and the joy that to me keeps people coming back, because after a while you're just going to tune out. It's especially with this franchise, right, Dave? And that was what was sort of spiriting about getting back to yesterday about the loss. They'd won a couple in a row. If they could beat a good team, solid team, then maybe you really start to believe a little bit. And it just it wasn't even close.
No, it wasn't. And to me, that's the biggest problem with, this season, this regime on some level, is that, the struggles against the good teams in the NFL are real. And, right now I think it's 1-4 against teams with winning records this season. And frankly, in 3 of those losses, they have not been competitive for large stretches of them. Yesterday against the Colts, couldn't solve that defense, couldn't stop an aging Phillip Rivers. Obviously the Packers earlier this year won by 21, and then the Saints game, even though the game was close at the end, that wasn't much of a game there. Look, I want to read you a quote here, Shawn, because I went back. I was writing my column, starting my Inside the Lions column on Monday morning that I always write, and I was looking up some things that Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn, trying to get a roadmap for sort of where this thing is headed. And Bob Quinn, when he fired Jim Caldwell, I know some of these words are always used against them, but one of the things he said was, they were 9-7, and he said, look, our record was above average, 9-7 the last 2 years, but our record against the better teams in the league has not been that good. That's one of the reasons that he cited for getting rid of Jim Caldwell. And I don't want to make this just about, the future of Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn, but I just bring this up to point out that we are in the exact same spot with this Lions team that we were 3 years ago that we really have been for most of the last couple decades. I mean, they were terrible under Matt Millen, but since Matt Millen, this is where the Lions have been. And before Matt Millen, they had some good years, but the by and large, this Lions fan base has not seen anything but mediocrity for the balance of its lifetime.
No, for sure. And I think what was dispiriting a little bit about yesterday, and I don't know how, I'm sure the hardcore Lions fans knew that the Colts had a pretty serious defense, right? So maybe it'd be a little bit difficult to have consistent drives on that side. But I think what was, I don't know if it surprised you or not, but the fact that they just couldn't get off the field, especially Dave early in the fourth quarter after they'd cut it down. They went on the run. The Colts got the sack fumble and scored. Then after the personal foul on Danny Shelton, gave him another shot right after they'd stopped him. Then they get to the pick six, and they're up by 20 or 21. I think they got the 2-point conversion. They go down and score a touchdown fairly quickly. The Colts get the ball back, Dave, with 11, 12 minutes to go in the fourth quarter on their own 27 maybe, and just sort of methodically and forcefully march right down the field. And several of the plays were runs where just kind of mashing them up front. I know the defense has had questions, but as you mentioned, and I joked that, Philip Rivers was 60 in my column, but the idea that they just couldn't get off the field at that point, they need to stop, right? They just had a quick touchdown. That to me kind of encapsulated everything. You can talk about the mistakes, the fouls, the pick sixes. Stafford missed a couple of balls. The block in the back the interference on the punt return, that was a little unlucky. But you can point to all of that. But the fact is, they got out muscled up front on both sides. And how do you fix that, right? That's not an overnight fix. And that's what it comes down to with some of these better teams, to me.
And especially when, this is something that Matt Patricia said the last couple of years, right? That's what they want to be. They want to control the game in the trenches. Matt always talks about that, even when he goes back to that comeback that the Patriots had against the Falcons in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, that they were in a spot where even though they were down, they didn't feel like the game was out of hand, because they were still controlling some things at the line of scrimmage. Never got that sense yesterday. The Lions just could, both sides of the ball, even though the Colts were, they didn't run for anything, 3 yards a carry. You mentioned it, when they needed to do it at the end of the game, they did it. The Lions, the offensive line, I thought it was their worst game of the season. Come out, started the third quarter. They play actually 2 good series where they block the Colts defensive line a little bit, and then things fall apart from there again. So it really, that game was won and lost up front. And it's sort of the, as hard as this Lions organization has tried to do some things to be that team that it wants to be up front, it just hasn't happened to this point under Matt Patricia.
No, it hasn't. And I want to throw a little love for a former colleague. Not that, hopefully our editors won't get too upset with this, but Nick Baumgartner used to work for us, and Nick well. And he and I talk, we keep in touch a lot. I don't know if you do, but he wrote a piece for The Athletic. He was talking about the sort of the speed and space and the stubbornness of the coaching staff and running on first down consistently and all that sort of thing. And I understand, and there are folks that feel that way out there. And I understand maybe it's not the most innovative, and maybe there is some stubbornness, but especially considering that the personnel just can't get the consistent push up front, especially on the offensive side. But I still don't think it's that. There are plenty of teams that run plenty of different schemes that do all sorts of different ways to move or stop the ball. But if you can't get any kind of push on either side of the ball, then it doesn't really matter what kind of scheme you have, right? Even Patrick Mahomes, if he's got defenders in his face all day, his QBR is going to go way, way down. So it to me, it really gets back to that. I don't look, I understand you keep running on first down when they know what's coming. You try to plug Adrian Peterson in there. Maybe that's not so effective. Maybe you can get a little bit more changing that up. But to me, the longer term answer and issues are what we're just talking about up front.
Yeah. And look, you're right. There is some, you look at the way that the Colts played yesterday, they were running early and they were getting nothing out of their running game, but they kept to it. And that's why, they stayed on the field a little bit. It did pay dividends in the end when the Lions were a little tired. The Lions, conversely, they run 20 plays in the first half, and 8 of them or something were in maybe it was 22 plays, and 8 of them were in that final 2-minute drive. They just couldn't stay on the field. That left their defense in a bad position. It was, to me, it was probably the most disheartening loss of the season, because
I agree.
Coming off those 2 wins, even though they were against bad teams, you sort of had this sense of, all right, the Lions, they're right in the middle of the NFL pack here, and maybe they're not great, but they're not bad, and they can compete for a wild card. And the Colts are the same way. As good as their defense is, the Colts are essentially the same sort of team. And so to not be able to hang with them, that really told me a lot about where this Lions franchise is right now.
And to the point, I mean, maybe one thing you think about I don't remember what touchdown it was in terms of the score, but the play where the back, what was his name? Is Hines?
Naheem Hines?
Yeah, wasn't it him who pre-snap kind of motioned out?
Fitness, by the way. Yes.
Yeah, motioned out and then came back. I hadn't quite seen that. What do you call that? It sort of looks like a wheel, but it's not. Maybe there's another name you hear is orbit, but he's running out and then he comes back and then fakes and then goes back out again, and it just fooled the entire defense. And when he caught the ball,
he got him off.
Yeah, nobody's anywhere near him when he caught the ball, and then of course he did the fabulous gymnastics routine in the end zone. But and so you could maybe argue there needs to be a little bit more of that, but and I would buy that. But look, man, the skill players are solid, but are they spectacular? I mean, if we're being honest, and they missed Kenny Golladay yesterday, he got hurt, right? But I don't know. Swift is a promising young quarterback. The first touchdown to Marvin Jones, Matthew Stafford, that when you see a ball like that, that was a great ball, wasn't it? Right in the pocket. He wasn't wide open. I mean, he had a defender on his back and had the velocity on it. He throws balls like that, and you think, okay, how many other guys can do that? Maybe Aaron Rodgers, a couple other guys.
Yeah.
But then he's airmailing Hall on the sideline. I think it was a 2nd and 10, right? That would have picked up the first down. He missed Hawkinson at least once, maybe twice over the middle. That probably stopped drives. But again, how fair is that, Dave? Let me ask you. They're asking him to almost be perfect.
Well, yeah. No, look, I mean, I think Stafford did not play a good game yesterday, right? I mean, you can't have turnovers on consecutive plays. And you're right. There were 2 throws in the first half. I think both would have extended drives that he missed, pretty open receivers. So this is not to absolve him of any blame. But our friend who's not here, our third wheel who's not here, I think he likes to take the focus off, whatever may be Matt Patricia's hot seat or whatever, and put the focus on something else. And that's when he said Stafford deserves all the blame for this one, more blame than anyone else. No, Stafford deserves blame, but the offensive line was bad. Their skill positions have not been very good this year. When you lose Kenny Golladay for a half, you're playing with. We saw how bad the offense was without him the first 2 games of the season. And Shawn, to your point, I think the mask has been pulled off Darrell Bevell a little bit. Things went so well early last year when Stafford was there, and we expect defenses to adjust. And this has been sort of a rough go for an offense that, even maybe though they don't have the best skill positions, they haven't been able to put a lot of things together on that side of the ball. So I think this Lions team has a lot of issues right now, and those don't show up against, some of the bad teams, the Jacksonville's and Atlanta, who doesn't have a great defense. And, we'll see here the next couple of weeks, Carolina and Houston and some of these other, Washington mediocre teams that, you can score 21 or 24 points and win a game. But in the NFL nowadays, the good teams are scoring 30, and the good teams can move the ball when they really need to, on the ground or through the air. And we haven't seen that out of the Lions, especially on the ground. And when Matthew Stafford isn't perfect, it's tough for this offense to keep up.
It is, and I agree. Obviously, Stafford has not been quite as sharp overall this year, and he didn't play great or even probably well yesterday. And he took the blame afterwards. To his credit, he said, "Put this on me if you're going to put it on anybody." Yeah. But again, I think of that pick 6, and obviously he just didn't see the cornerback. I think it was a cornerback, maybe it was a safety, but I can't remember. But it was similar to Green Bay. It was a pick 6. That was later in the game too, after you're kind of getting beat down. He'd been under pressure all day yesterday, right? And at some point, how does that not wear on your soul a little bit? And maybe you lose a tiny bit of focus because you start seeing the field differently because you start feeling that pressure. I don't put the fumble sack on him. He avoided one guy, and then the guy, and there was another defender right there who caused it, right? You escape once, you turn around, and bam, there's another guy. It's not his fault necessarily. The pick 6, though, yes, that's his fault. He should have seen them. But it's not like they're coming in the first quarter. It's coming after against better opponents generally, where he's getting beat up the whole game. You know what I mean? And you just kind of
No,
What are
we
you going
talked
to?
about that before, going back to some of the turnovers that he had at the very beginning of the season, and I know I shared what Kurt Warner had told me, that he just sees Stafford as a guy that always has to do too much because so much has always been put on his shoulders. And again, that's not to absolve Stafford of blame. He shares in it and deserves it for this game. But I think your point is right, Shawn, that, he's for a long time, he's had to carry this franchise. And when the Lions get down and they get into those situations, he feels like he's the only guy that can make a play, and sometimes he's right about it. You see what happened last week against Atlanta when he was special, in both the 2-minute drives that they had at the end of the first half and at the end of the game, and it didn't click. This week it wasn't there, and now they have more issues going forward. Again, these are their next 4 games, very winnable games. Though Minnesota looked pretty good yesterday, but Lions might be without Kenny Golladay, and even if they do have Kenny Golladay. Look, Kenny Golladay is not happy about his contract right now, right? I mean, he expected to have a deal done. He told some people this summer that he thought he'd have a deal done. There's some frustrations I think that are coming out. When I talked to him last week, and asked him if he still wanted to be here, he said, "Yeah, I got number 9." I mean, like it wasn't about the Lions in that organization. It was about I got a good quarterback throwing me the ball. And there was a report from CBS Sports that Golladay maybe wasn't where he was supposed to be on Saturday, didn't attend all of the meetings. I think maybe there's some truth to that. I'm still trying to get to the bottom of exactly what that was about. And now he's hurt, dealing with a hip injury. So all of a sudden you're missing him. Hal Vaitai, one of your offensive linemen, Jamal Agnew was hurt. We'll see how long these injuries last. But as the Lions head now into the second half of the season, I know there's 9 games left, but really the second half of the season, there's a lot more issues that this team is facing, a lot more questions that they have right now than answers.
Well, for sure. And I would have to say after yesterday, Minnesota beating Green Bay, right? I mean, that just shows you. I mean, kind of to Reggie Ragland's point, the Lions linebacker who talked to us yesterday, right, on Zoom, and said, "Hey, he was not happy with folks that saying, hey, you can only beat the 1-win teams or whatever." And he said, "Look, they've got NFL players, and any team, right? There's to his point that it played out at what the game was at Green Bay, maybe, right? But it played out yesterday with Green Bay and the Vikings.
Yep.
So how confident are you that they're going to go in and beat Minnesota now? I mean, right. I mean, that's no guarantee by a long shot.
Hey, Delvin Cook is healthy. Minnesota is a different team. That's going to be a tough offense for the Lions to stop. So. And I know, look, Kirk Cousins, say what you will about him, but Delvin Cook, one of the 3 best running backs in the NFL, probably. And so, we've seen the Lions run defense, even though they had a couple of good games there against Jacksonville and Atlanta. We saw them struggle mightily early in the season. We saw them struggle a little bit yesterday. Wasn't a great yards per carry average, but when they needed to get stops, they couldn't get stops. The goal line, there was the 4th and 1 play, late in the game, like you mentioned. So. Those to me, more than the yards per carry, those to me, getting stops in those key situations when you need it is really what it comes down to in the NFL.
Well, plus Cousins lit the Lions up last year, right? At Ford Field, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I mean, so, you're right. He's inconsistent, but he's certainly capable of going out and throwing for 300 yards. And I don't know, Dave. I know it's a broken record. We talk about this all the time. Patricia says the same things. It's better coaching. We need to coach better. We need to play better. We need to execute better. But on some level, just this fan base, they had a little bit of hope. They're making videos a week ago about the comeback in Atlanta. And let's be real, walk-off wins in the NFL are rare. Even it doesn't matter if it's a 1-win team or not. It's why shouldn't that bring you a little happiness? But a lot of the fans buy in a little bit. I know plenty didn't because they've seen this movie too many times, but you just feel for them.
Feel for him. It was a disheartening loss. We'll see if the Lions can bounce back this week. We'll leave it there because I know you gotta go do your civic duty and vote. You're sitting in your car.
I do. I'm going to write Carlos Monarrez in, if that's all right with you.
I'm going to go look for Carlos because I'm worried about him this morning. I'm worried about his psyche. It's fragile after his Lions suffered a tough loss yesterday. His guy, Matt Patricia, back on the hot seat. I'm worried about how Carlos is doing this morning. So I'm going to lead the search party to go check in on him.
Yeah, go check in. He's probably in a film room in Allen Park, I would imagine. But so you might not want to interrupt him yet, but I'm sure he'll be free this afternoon.
If he's in the film room, then he would know that the problems were bigger than Matthew Stafford yesterday.
That's true. That's true. Well, unless he's watching with one eye,
That's right. All right, we'll leave it there. For Shawn Windsor, I'm Dave Birkett, Freep.com.